Welcome to today's session, Future Ready Pathways in Middle School. We're happy to have you all here today. And as people join us from the waiting room and really from around the world, I suppose, we'll just go over some housekeeping, some basic kinds of things. Today's session is Future Ready Pathways in Middle School. My name is Charlotte Diller. I'm the Director of Technology here at ISKL, and I'm going to be today's moderator. So a little later in the session, we'll have some Q&A and I'll help facilitate that. And as we go along, I'll be putting some things in the chat as well. So before we get started, just some housekeeping. Please do stay muted throughout the presentation. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, we'll help you out. We can also help mute so we don't get that background noise. If you do have any questions as we're going through, please do place them in the chat and we will have Q&A at the end of the session, at the end of the presentations. If you would like to rename yourself in Zoom, you can click on the video and the video of yourself and the three dots and you can rename yourself. That helps us if we're chatting and we can know what to call you. And finally, please note that this session is being recorded and it will be published on the ISKL website and also our YouTube channel. So keep that in mind as we're going through in case you want to not show your video and not be recorded. And with that, I think there are enough people here coming in that we can go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to make one of my colleagues, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to help us admit people into the waiting room, from the waiting room. Okay. Again, my name is Charlotte Diller. Today's session is Future Ready Pathways in Middle School. And just a few introductory remarks about ISKL. Many of you are already familiar with ISKL. We were established in 1965, and the International School of Kuala Lumpur, or ISKL as we call it, has become known as a center of excellence in the world of international education. And as a forward-thinking and future-ready school, we're committed to sharing learning and stimulating discussion about important topics in education, both for ISKL and the wider community. ISKL's middle school, or MS experience, goes way beyond the expected parameters of an international school by basing learning on student ownership, where education is not done to students, but with them. There are multiple elements integrated into our middle school program, and you'll hear a few of them this evening, such as agency, Malaysia Week, WIN, or What I Need Time, sports and activities that empower students to develop their voice, exercise choice, and practice future-ready life skills such as initiative, calculated risk-taking, and belief in oneself in a supportive environment. And actually, a little secret to tell you, middle school is actually my favorite section of the school. I used to be a middle school teacher before I went into technology. So middle schoolers just have a warm spot in my heart. And it's my pleasure now to introduce our speakers for this evening. I will be putting more information in the chat about them. Our speakers this evening are Rami Madani, our ISKL head of school. And Rami will talk about what differentiates a future-ready student. Peter Casey has been our middle school principal for the last 5 years. And Doug Woodward is our middle school assistant principal. Pete and Doug will explain the middle school experience, how the curriculum has been developed, and how it is supporting students in owning their learning. Tanya Hawks is our middle school and high school teaching and learning coordinator here at ISKL. Tanya probably has one of the most exciting pieces this evening. She'll be moderating a panel of discussion with middle school students and how high school students as well. So we hear it directly from those who matter, our students, your children. So with that, let's get started with our head of school, Rami Madani.
Thank you, Charlotte, and good evening or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. We're very thrilled to have you with us. And as Charlotte said, we're always proud of our students. I'm honestly looking forward to their session, and I hope to go through my 10 minutes very quickly so I enjoy listening to our students. Briefly about our school, you see at a glance, we are celebrating our 55th anniversary this year. We have about 1,700 students with 65 nationalities. It's quite diverse, and our IB program is extremely well established. And we're very happy to have 1,524 IB graduates over the history of ISKL, as well as a wealth of amazing programs that we offer, which you will hear about later on. And then the next, they see a selection of the awards and accreditation affiliations that we have as a school. This provides us with a sense of accountability and also credibility. We are accredited by the highest ranking organizations globally that check on schools' curriculum, teaching and learning, and all aspects of the school. We're very proud of that. However, today's focus is on ISKL's vision. What's that future? Where are we headed? What's our purpose? In moments like the pandemic that we observe now, there is nothing more urgent, more important for all schools everywhere in the world to ask themselves, what's our purpose? What are we preparing students for? At ISKL, we believe our purpose is not only to prepare students to get good grades and college. Yes, we do that, but to prepare them to be successful in their lives, so that they transform conditions for self, others, and the environment around them. And to do that, our vision helps us empower students to develop passion and competencies in areas that make the world a better place. And as we see, the Sustainable Development Goals are a necessity globally. We are observing it now, and we know this is the need for the future. You will hear later on a lot about the passion of our students and their competencies and how they use them to make the world a better place. To achieve that vision, we provide learning that is personal, authentic, learner-focused, and technology relational. We believe these are important aspects of the learning program to walk the talk. While most schools have similar mission statements, the differentiator between schools is what you experience, what kids talk about, what we celebrate, and what we focus our attention on. And we promote programs that are, it's a bit of the slide before. Okay, our programs are highly inclusive, innovative, partnership focused, and also grounded in the Sustainable Development Goals. And these are also our values in terms of promoting inclusion, innovation, and making a difference. To achieve that, we believe at ISKL, everyone goes to school, not only students, adults as well. And we achieve it by creating a culture where we all model what we want to see in our students. We ground our culture with empathy and care because we are in the business of people. We believe that collective efficacy is essential for our success. That's how students collaborate with each other, with a shared responsibility for their success. That's how adults, teachers, staff, administrators, board members, parents, we're proud of that level of collaboration. And we have high expectations of ourselves. We have the expectations to achieve everything we can achieve for the greater good. So when we put all that together, this is the ISKL newish vision. And it integrates everything. The circle, the blue circle is like the web that holds everything together, and that's our culture. And at the center is the purpose of ISKL, making conditions better for oneself, for others, and the environment. So every student do not only define their success as success for self, but in what ways are they contributing to others and the environment? This vision helps us as we make decisions around ISKL. As you know, schools are busy places and ideas come from different aspects of schooling, from students, from parents, from educators, from research, from global events. And schools that are purpose-driven are schools who are aware how they make decisions. At ISKL, at the center of our decision-making is the student. We look at what are our mission and values. We are grounded in research, and then we look at the data of our students. What are their needs, their learning, their social, emotional needs, what the surveys tell us, and that helps us to make decisions. The data is then looked at through a very detailed, structured process that help us understand the data, define goals to help us make informed decisions. And examples of how we use the data and what data we collect, you can see in a list that we use the IB, we also use the AP, and we use MAP data. We use other program data that can be internal or external, like SAT, WIDA, well-being surveys, parent, student, faculty surveys, co-curricular enrollment. We practically see data as a holistic window into understanding where are our kids now, where do they need to go, and how to help them get there. Some of the examples of how we know where we're headed with the learning at ISKL, how well are we doing at ISKL. We use external assessments as well as internal assessment. The external you see on the left, these are standardized assessments that help us understand where we are in a wide range of areas. On the right, you see examples of internal assessments that we use at ISKL that help us have day-to-day data. Our teachers interact with students. Students give constant data by the way they engage, by the way they provide input and respond to questions. Now, as we see from research, looking at the future is a very exciting thing. And this is something we take very seriously at ISKL. With a school with 65 nationalities, we have different possibly hopes, aspirations, definition of success. And this research you see in front of you talks in a powerful way about the importance of questioning everything we do in the right way for the right reason. We want our students to define success that is very individualized for them. Students are different. Success can look differently for different one. They talk, for example, about toxic narrative, when all students or parents or community think about is, my success is only grades. That's not it. That's not at ISKL. There are so many characteristics and dispositions that define what success could look like, should look like. So some of the questions we engage our community with and ourselves is, we all want our children to be successful in their future. No one would debate that. All parents want their kids to be successful. What are your hopes for your children's future? We talk, we listen to parents, we reflect. The second powerful question is, what skills and learning experiences will help your child be successful in that future? Because that helps us define the way. The first question is to clarify the destination, and the second one is to clarify the way. Now, we do interact with our parent community, and one example of many examples is the head of school partnership with the parent community. And every year we have different sessions. This year is quite coherent. It's quite strategic in the way we use intentionally. I would like to finish by saying that the biggest differentiator between future-ready students and those students who are not yet future-ready is what goals do they set for themselves. Future-ready students have long-term, transferable, ambitious goals. If they are not that long-term, ambitious, with impact on the world and the environment, they may be short-term goals, but that's a differentiator. Future-ready students think beyond just the grade, beyond just tomorrow, beyond just the test. Yes, they think of all of that, but they have the destination we talked about in the question one very clear in their mind. With that, I would like to finish and hand it over to my colleagues, Peter Casey and Doug Woodward.
Thank you very much, Rami, and well said. You know, we were really lucky, both Doug and I have this amazing role in the middle school to be the administrators and to really look over the growth of our kids. And it's pretty amazing to see and to think that in the course of their life, we get to be a part of the second greatest learning and growth phase in their life, other than when they're 1 year old. To go from an 11-year-old to a 14-year-old is just a time of just incredible growth. And really, we get the kids when they're children, and then we move them along, and they're young adults when they leave the middle school. You can't imagine how exciting that is. And really, we play a huge part in what Rami has been talking about in the preparation of giving them opportunities for their future and finding that right pathway for them. We come back to that diagram for a little bit. Just think about self and think about the growth that those kids experience, and thinking, really what we're trying to do is help the kids understand who they are so that they can be comfortable with who they are, have an impact on others, and then have an impact on our environment as well. If you think about pathways, here's a lot of the very traditional pathways that kids have gone through school, and many schools offer a lot of the things that we have here. But I can honestly say, after 28 years in international education and my 6th international school, that real traditional way of doing things in terms of what school has really been about for years and years, we do it extremely well. Just look at the inquiry-based international curriculum. We have from the NGSS and WIDA and MTSS, SHAPE, the C3 framework, the Common Core, best practice, research-based, excellent pedagogy by our teachers. It's really well done. And then talking about our teachers, we are very fortunate that ISKL can attract highly qualified, very competent, wonderful teachers that want to deal and teach middle school kids. They want to work with middle school kids. And we want to focus on their social and emotional learning too. It's not just about academics, but we want to support your kids and treat them like you would want your kids treated and they want their kids treated. It's an amazingly warm and caring place. And we have a really proud part of our school is really the idea that diversity is a skill, and it makes us better, and that we get an opportunity to work with a variety of different learners, whether they're learning a second language or they've come from a school that has a different system. We bring them all in, we give them support. Everybody's welcome and included at ISKL. It's a very proud program for us, and we have specialists in all those areas to really support kids. Of course, when we're on campus, we've all hopefully seen some of the incredible productions that we have. Our arts program is second to none. Drama and orchestra, strings, choir. Thinking a little bit about our robotics and all of our DT that we offer, we do international competitions for that as well. Our kids get some amazing opportunities, and it's really accessible to all kids, not just the kids that are really into it. Every kid gets a chance to be a part of that. Really exciting. And of course, we have an enormous co-curricular program where Mr. Foodie, our athletics and activities director's sole job is to provide amazing opportunities for students. And once the school day ends at 3 o'clock, it's pretty amazing how things just keep rolling right into the evening and on the weekends. And so we have a really rich and varied sporting opportunity. And again, our kids get to travel and do things internationally and compete and go on drama and sports trips all over Southeast Asia. And of course, for those of you that have had a chance to experience this is really a transformative an incredible program at ISKL, which is Malaysia Week. And I know it's a bit nerve-wracking for our 6th grade parents to send their children away with us for 4 nights as we take them to all corners of Malaysia, the jungle and the rainforest and the oceans, and doing a variety of different things. But just look at those kids in that photo and look at Mr. Woodward there. It's really a transformative experience for our kids. And outdoor adventure leadership has been going on at ISKL for 40 years. It's an amazing program. We do it so well. So we talked a little bit about student agency as being one of the things that sort of differentiates us. Lots of schools have those programs I talked about. I think we're really awesome at delivering those ones, but we also really want kids to develop what we call agency. And that is what Rami was talking about, talked about those passions that kids have. So if you think of all those images you just saw, think about planting those seeds and all the things that the kids get a chance to experience. What are they extremely excited about? And then how do we help them develop competencies and things they're passionate about? And then we apply them to the SDGs. So agency at ISKL is defined as students having the drive and capacity to take initiative. And people with agency are seeking opportunities that are driven by their interests, and are relevant to life experiences. We want that for our kids to be able to look for those things that they're really excited about. So let's think a little bit about what these three terms are. You often hear the word differentiation, and that's really when the teacher provides opportunities for kids to have access to the curriculum and to the learning by giving them a different approach for whatever each child needs. We talk about student voice and choice. Again, it's provided by the teacher to promote motivation and ownership and access to learning. We talk about student agency. What we're really talking about is the kid's ability to have the drive and capacity to take initiative. And that's demonstrated by the student. It's the student's drive. It's the student that has the will and the desire to do that. And that really is an important difference in changing the mindset of kids. So when we talk about the drive, we're talking about the mindset. Do they are able to develop and express their views and interests and follow their passions? And then do they have the skills to actually move towards those goals that Rami was talking about that take you further into life? Do they have the skills if they want to pursue math or English or working with NGOs or refugee kids? Do they know what that takes? Do they have the communication skills? Do they have the critical thinking skills? That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the mindsets and giving the skills so kids can have agency over their learning. In a middle school, we approach this in two ways. So we call the agency, and we talk about it a lot. But in the reality, it really only dedicate about 10 to 12 hours of actual school day time for students to explore some of the things that they're interested in. And we basically leave that wide open for the kids to follow some of their passions in that time. And they have time each week for about 6 to 8 weeks to really dive into a project. And then we have also curricular agency, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. But we talk about the agency. Kids have done some amazing things. This group here was really just making a movie. And I'd show it to you if I had the opportunity. It's really impressive. But back then they were already doing distance learning because one of the kids was sick. Many, many art programs and drawings that kids wanted to pursue. Some kids were really into doing makeup. So they did dramatic makeup and they used that at a variety of our different productions. And then other kids were really excited about working with some of our local schools and working with bringing kids over for sports engagements and just interactions with our kids. These two kids on the top, they decided they were going to use the electricity from plants and wire it all together to charge a cell phone. It was really an incredible project they got into. And then these girls, of course, wanted to go around and find examples of empathy. And they call it the Empathy Project. They wanted to show people in our community all the different things that people were doing that showed empathy. The other side of this is where agency really happens within the curriculum. And so we talk about creating a culture of I can. So kids really thinking about, hey, I'm the one. This is my class. I want to learn these things. These are the things that are important to me. So I think it's really important for kids to have that mindset as they go along through the process and, identify their needs and interests within the classroom. So what about English? Is it Shakespeare? Is it, what is it they might want to study? And how do we give them the independence to follow some of those things? The other thing I think is really important, we're talking about kids being future ready. We don't really know what the future holds. So we need our students to be curious about that and have the mindset of being a scientist or a writer or an inventor. And we will allow kids to pursue the things that are relevant to them. So giving them more choice within the classroom to how to express their learning is really important. And of course, all that needs to happen in a safe space. To be future ready, to find their pathway, we have to widen the barriers a little bit so kids have more room to move as they go through school. And that allows them to do some things that are a little bit more relevant to them. So we talk about some of the skills that we need them to know. Well, teachers are really clear about which skills they're going to have kids be able to demonstrate at the end of their unit. And those essential skills are going to be really important. So communicating, reasoning critically, learn enthusiastically, all those things that are ESLers are really a big part of that. And giving kids the opportunity to evaluate their own progress. John Hattie would say, educational researcher, one of the best indicators of how well a student will do is how well they can self-assess themselves. So we really give kids an opportunity to do that. And then, of course, metacognition strategies. Have kids thinking about how they think. And I think more than ever with kids at home in the online learning environment, in our continuous learning, kids are really thinking about when and how they learn best. And we can see that it's a challenge for them. When we think about metacognition when we're at school, one of the things that we've really tried to do is say, look, we want to prepare kids for the future. Well, there's the future and then there's high school. And one of the things we really want to think about with high school is the kids are given a block of time. Do they know how to use time that's unstructured? So we created an opportunity for students to have time almost every day, 4 of the 5 days of the week when we're on campus, what we call win time. And that's a student deciding what I need. And during that time, kids will have the opportunity to work or do whatever it is they need to do. It's driven by them. The other great thing, it's not like a study hall, because study hall is just, this is a block of time and everybody else is doing their thing. The whole school is engaged in win time. And that means that teachers can access kids can access teachers, groups of kids can get together. It's less structured and it's more put back on what the kids need and how they want to direct their learning. So those are some ways that pathways that we have for kids to find their way as they go through middle school. And we've got giving kids more and more voice and choice and agency as they go through the program to try and find their passions. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Doug Woodward. He's going to talk to you a little bit about some great stories before we get a chance to hear from our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. You can see how passionate we are about creating this future pathway so that kids are ready for the success of what the next level is. And Peter highlighted those essential skills. What are the skills that are going to transform them and help them be successful at the next level? And we've defined these as our school-wide learning results, because they truly are school-wide, and they're results because kids end up getting better at these things. From the kid-friendly language of learn enthusiastically to those transformative indicators of being self-directed, using feedback, being resilient, setting goals. These are the skills that we hope kids are getting better at each day. Rami talked about data, and we'll have conversations around data. So we're just going to go a little bit into one type of conversation that we might have. So this is 8th grade math, and I might be asked, what's more important, growth or achievement? Well, achievement is as you see from the left to the right. Farther to the right is greater achievement. Growth is how they did at the beginning of the year to the end of the year, from the bottom to the top. And you'd have to say both are incredible. In an average school, all the dots would be average, right in the middle. And you can see ISKL with such a huge concentration of kids with both high achievement and high growth. To dive into those conversations, as we might say, what might it mean? We have 141 students. 141 students in 8th grade who start at the beginning and end with us at the end of the year. 50% of them should be better than average. At ISKL, in this particular data set, 93% were above average. It's literally Lake Wobegon, for those of you who know US culture. 44%, nearly half, are in the 90th percentile for achievement. And you think of on the top 1%, 6% of our kids. So it's a strong place for achievement. But growth is where we get really excited, because wherever kids are, how can they get better each and every day? And with 90% of teenagers showing growth from 2 data points, that's a pretty special place. 23% above the 90th percentile and 10% in the top 1 percentile, the 99th percentile for growth. Each and every one of those 141 kids, they're people, they're kids, they're future ready of thinking what their future is. And we wish we had time to talk about each and every one of their stories. In a minute, you're going to hear the best part, the stories of some of those kids who have currently or recently gone through our middle school. But let's look a little bit at the past. What did it look like? These are students that we had in the middle school, and this last year they've graduated. So just to tell a couple of brief stories, I want to emphasize that this is a snippet. At ISKL, you can be both a physicist and a dancer. You can be an athlete, and you can be interested in academics. And so these are just snippets of who they are, and we wish you had time for them to be able to hear all of them. But Tanmay Gupta was a 6th grader in our middle school and playing with robotics and building Legos. And now he's off at Caltech studying astronomy and astrophysics, and one of the few students in the world who got a perfect 45 in his IB. Amanda Sue, that shy, wondering what middle school looks like, and an incredible architect and artist who's actually spent much of her summer during COVID designing a beautiful mural that we now have at the entrance of our school to create beauty in our community. Win Lee, you can see her on the left performing at an assembly and becoming a musician. And as 12 seasons, from 3 full seasons for 4 full years as a varsity athlete and a musician and a leader, it's really inspiring to get to work with these young men and women. And Bosch Kao, an amazing young man who we knew, and you can see over in 6th grade, enjoying Malaysia Week and having fun. And incredibly, an athlete who never dropped a set in 4 years of badminton. Never, ever even dropped a set, one of a national champion at the Malaysian level and a phenomenal chess player, now at NYU. We wish you could spend more time to talk about each and every one of these kids. And sometimes Peter Casey likes to say, our middle school is a pretty special place. There may be a better middle school out there, but we don't know where it is. But where do we go from here? We're always looking to get better because that's what future ready is. How can we make our kids ready for the future? And it's a lot of those things we highlight so they take ownership over those critical skills of setting their time, setting long range goals, taking care of themselves, thinking in a design way that's going to include systems, and taking agency over their learning. And we are so excited for this box on the right that you are here as part of that home partnership, because that is so crucial as you, the parents, the students, and the school work together to get some exciting opportunities for kids to get better at those things. And now we've talked for a little bit, but this is the best part. You're going to get to hear from the kids, the stars of the show, not because they have the right answers, but because they're on the journey of asking the right questions and figuring things out. And that's what we all do at ISKL. So Tanya, thank you for leading us in this next exciting section of just a conversation with kids.
Thanks, Doug. It's great to hear some of those stories and to be here with you all. I think Rami said at the start that I do have the best part of this is facilitating the conversation for our students who've really taken some time to think about what they'd like to share that's so special about our middle school program and how they've grown as a result of that. So I'm going to ask Rika, who's a grade 9 student, to start the introduction so that they can introduce themselves to you all. Pass it over to you, Rika.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rika. I am, like Ms. Hawks said, I'm in 9th grade right now, but I just got out of middle school, virtually, unfortunately, but it was still really fun. I am half Japanese, half Indian, but I've been in Malaysia for over 10 years now and ISKL for 6 years. And basically what the 4 of us, me included, students will be doing is sharing or highlighting an experience that has made us grow or find or kind of improve a skill that makes us confident in the future in ourselves. So yeah, ZY, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Zhao Yang. A lot of people know me as the ZY as well. I'm currently in 8th grade and this is my 9th year at ISKL. I'm Malaysian Chinese and I've really enjoyed being at ISKL. Zihong?
Yeah, hi, I'm Zihong. I'm in 7th grade this year. This is also my 9th year at ISKL, just like ZY. I'm from Malaysia, and for that reason, I've been here my entire life.
Hi, I'm Greta. I've been at ISKL this is my 2nd year now, and I'm in the 6th grade, and I'm from the US.
And Greta's going to be really brave and share with us her story to start with. We were chatting today, first year in the middle school program, Greta, and we heard Mr. Casey and Mr. Woodward talk earlier about us wanting to really support your self-directedness. So I'm wondering if you can maybe give us some examples of what that's actually looked like for you this year through some of the work that you've done.
Like Mr. Woodward and Mr. Casey were saying, in the middle school we have agency and win time. And during agency time, I wanted to foster kittens, but I didn't really know how to do it. So I had to set some goals because I thought I would foster so many kittens and it would be so easy. But it turns out it's not that easy. And I had to set a goal that was like more reachable than what I thought it was going to be at the beginning. And then slowly, I was able to reach the goal. And now I'm on my 6th foster kitten because I set a goal that was easier to reach for myself. And for the win time, I was able to, like when I was in elementary school, I didn't advocate for myself as much as I probably should have. And now because of win time, I think one of the main purposes of Win Time, not only getting your work done and getting to go and visit your teachers and ask for help, is you're teaching yourself how to advocate, and you're getting to learn how to speak up for yourself and say, I need help with this. Can you please help me? And that was a really big part of my learning.
So in thinking about the fostering kittens, Greta, you simplified that a lot. There was a lot of learning going on there. What would you say was some of the biggest challenges you came across, and how did you overcome them?
I thought I could just call up the SPCA and ask to foster a kitten, and then they would hand me a kitten and say, okay, have fun. But it turns out that's not the way it works out. I had to get outside of my comfort zone and go and ask students in my grade, go and ask some teachers, and I had to go and find other organizations and rescue groups and email them and call them. And then finally I was able to get a kitten just a couple of weeks ago. And now I'm on my 6th foster kitten because I was able to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and go and expand my thinking.
It's definitely something to be proud of. Thanks, Greta. We might, I know Ji-Hong's got something to share as well. So Ji-Hong, you're in grade 7 now. So when you think about the many learning experiences that you've had over the last year and a half, can you share with us maybe one where you know that the lessons that you learned will be ones that are really important for your future? Maybe describe it for us first and then tell us what you learned.
Yeah, sure. So just like Greta, I think that one of the best and most memorable learning experiences for me, I guess, personally, was also agency. And so for my agency project, I decided that I would team up with a couple of my friends to work together and plant a few trees at ISKL to help the environment.
And so what did that look like? Can you describe the process? Who did you work with and what did you do?
I guess one of the most important things that I learned from this experience during agency was the human-centered design cycle. And so the first part of that would be to empathize. And to empathize, we empathize with the environment, to step and look at the environment from another person's shoes. That would be Miss Isian. And so we talked to her needs, and we talked to her about what she needed, and we helped meet the needs of each other by being interdependent. And then I guess would be to define. We define our school right to work, ideating, thinking about the types of trees that we could grow, just like I talked about before. And then we proceeded to prototype, which was actually executing it. And basically, just like I said just now, it didn't go that well. One of our trees ended up dying, but I think it was a really insightful experience for me to be able to look at the world from Miss Isian's shoes and just be able to work together with these people that really help make ISKL the way it is.
Thank you. I think you highlighted before, and it broke up a little bit, about the fact that it wasn't about the outcome, it was about the process that you went through and connecting with the people and understanding the needs of the people and the environment. So thank you for sharing that. So Young, you're in grade 9, and I know that your story really connects with what Mr. Madani shared about exploring passions and sharing those passions with others. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how did that work for you? What did that look like?
Yeah, sure. I'm currently in grade 8 right now. And I feel like the middle school curriculum really offers choices every step of the way. Even every assignment in class, it feels like an opportunity, really. Middle school has just been such a supportive environment for me to try and fail and then try again. But ultimately, I feel capable of discovering my passions and really figuring out who I want to be. I mean, I've grown many interests throughout middle school, like music, art, and public speaking. But one that surprisingly stood out to me is programming, actually.
And tell us a little bit more about how you discovered your passion for programming and some things that you might do to share that with others and to enhance the educational experience for others.
Yeah, from a very young age, I somehow was interested in programming. And in school, there were hours of code, which were really interesting throughout the year. And once I entered middle school, I felt encouraged to speak out and advocate for myself so much more. I remember my 6th grade science teacher, who was always there for me. When I was in 7th grade, he helped me host my own after-school activity where I taught programming myself, which I'm also about to do again this year as an 8th grader. I constantly look for places to develop those passions as well. I lead different initiatives in the MS Student Council and got to use my programming skills to actually make Pop a Kind Message, which is a really interesting platform for the middle school community to show gratitude to each other by sending anonymous kind messages.
And so apart from programming, Zhao Yang, what would be some other skills that you would say you've really developed in through that process?
I've learned lots of important skills like creativity and especially leadership. I'm about to host a school-wide programming competition next week. I can't wait. And having this chance to explore myself in middle school gives me the courage to discover other things outside of school as well. It's that self-direction, you know? And I think that these skills will really help me once I get to high school next school year and beyond that towards the future. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Zhao Yang. That's a great segue, I think, because Rika's now in high school in year 9 and come through our middle school program. And Rika's reflected a lot on what are some of the experiences that have really helped her go into high school with confidence and know that that's going to be the right thing for her future as well. So Rika, is there something you'd like to share with us around what you've learned?
I think a really big experience that has stuck with me throughout even now, and I will remember it for the rest of my life, is my experience in student council, or now called student leadership team, in middle school. I was part of student council / student leadership team all throughout my years in middle school. So starting as a little 6th grader, I was really excited because this wasn't something that we had in elementary school. And I was really excited to be able to kind of have an official leading spot and be able to kind of officially, again, guide other students and my peers. And that continued on. It looked a little bit different once we came to the new campus in 7th grade and 8th grade. I took a much bigger role of leadership within the student leadership team in 8th grade, and I was able to really guide students that way.
And tell us about how your understanding of what it means to be a leader has changed over time as a result of your experiences.
Yeah, so I have always had an opinion. I'm sure I've had an opinion since I've been able to talk. But all throughout elementary school, you know, my teachers would tell my parents, oh, you know, she's a natural leader. She knows how to use her voice properly. And until middle school, I thought being a leader was telling people what to do because I was leading them to do the right thing. And I was telling them exactly what to do so they wouldn't be confused. But then once we got into middle school and we started talking about the SLRs, like Mr. Casey was talking about, and having to evaluate ourselves against those SLRs, there was a specific category, or SLR, for collaborate constructively. And I was marking myself off, expecting to like give myself the highest mark because I'm like, no, I was a great leader and I did all these things. But then there were things about listening to all ideas and combining ideas and thinking about how you could take someone else's idea further. And then it kind of hit me as a little 6th grader. I had my first epiphany. And I was like, oh, being a leader isn't just leading people, it's guiding people and being able to understand exactly what that group of people needs. And maybe that group of people need someone to tell them exactly what to do and lay it out for them. But maybe all they need is someone to kind of take that first step. And from there, everyone is just gonna give their ideas and just kind of go with the flow. And I think that is something that I've carried all throughout since I gave myself that evaluation. And I've really learned what it means to be a true leader. And I'm sure I'll be growing my skill for the rest of my life, but that's kind of where it started.
Thank you. That was a really powerful story. Thank you for sharing it. I think that we could probably hear many stories like these from these students, and of course they represent our whole community of all the other students who would have equal stories to tell. But I think that we have questions now. Ms. Diller, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Tanya. And thank you, students. It's always my favorite part to hear the voices of students because you're the ones who matter. In the end, if we're not succeeding with you, then what? So thank you. And actually, some of these questions you might jump in as well. What I'll do is I'll gather and I'm going to address some of the ones that we received here tonight. And we also have some questions that came in before this session. So we have just about nearly about 15 minutes to address some questions, or at least about 10 before we close up. So first, a question that seems like it's relevant, particularly after the students have spoken. There was a question about how many students do you think are finding agency and the whole focus on agency helpful in navigating through MS and beyond? And any one of the students or principals or Tanya can speak to that.
Well, I see agency everywhere. It's not just something that happens, as Mr. Casey said before, in that 10-hour period. It happens every day in school, and we're constantly inventing new ways of learning and being creative and expressing ourselves. And looking at what's already in the middle school, there's so much already happening. I remember some of my friends, they used makeup to paint an animal being abused to spread the message and awareness about animal cruelty. And I thought that was really nice. And in high school, especially, I'm seeing so many people who've moved on to high school creating such amazing projects, going out, community service, everything. So looking right now and forward, there's so much agency already happening, and it's really helpful for everyone.
Thank you. And Greta, it looks like thank you. And it looks like you have something to add to that.
Yeah, like Ziva was saying earlier about how we're all in Stuco and we're doing all this stuff. Stuco now is kind of like, I don't know if it was like this last year because I wasn't in middle school last year, but it's now like you get Mr. Sprague and Miss Nelson don't really, they're not really a part of it. They kind of just supervise to make sure that we're doing kind of in the right direction and we're not just going totally off what we're supposed to be doing. And so we're now getting to decide what we think middle school could benefit from. And like Ziva was saying, he was able to make Pop a Kind message, and that has been a really big thing in the middle school so far. And we're making trivia every Monday and Wednesday. So I think like all of that is kind of agency because we're getting to decide what we want to do and how we can benefit from it and how the middle school is,
So it's still that self-directed, it's the initiative, and it's making things happen. And it sounds like making things happen that matter. And so as you're thinking about it, and I'd like to, Rika, you're in 9th grade, is that correct? And you were in middle school. There's a question here. You may not have been part of the agency kind of work in middle school, or perhaps you were. But there is a question about, well, so how does the middle school prepare you for the vigorous learning and so forth in high school? Did you feel prepared? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. I felt super prepared, and I still feel prepared because I'm still technically a freshman. But I think middle school, it gently allowed all the students to kind of get used to what Greta was talking about, self-advocacy and guiding ourselves, because it definitely becomes less and less in high school, but not to a point where we feel abandoned and I don't feel like I can go to my teachers anymore. But I like to think of it as kind of an essay. Like in elementary school, writing an essay was a big deal. And we would get so much support from our teachers, and it was like a one-time thing in a year. We get so much support from our teachers. Every single paragraph we wrote was looked over by our teachers and given feedback, and that was great. Then we go into middle school, the essays become more frequent, but still mostly every single paragraph is worked with and looked with teachers, and it's if I have a concern about a specific paragraph, I can ask my teacher, and that's how it was. And then you kind of go on to 7th and 8th grade, the teacher meetings become a little bit less, maybe there's a template, but the teachers are always saying, if you need me to look over a paragraph, if you need me to do this, I'll, of course, just reach out to me and we can talk about it. And then in high school, it's really up to the student to say, I need, like, you have to find it in yourself that you accept that you are a little bit insecure or a little bit confused about something, and then you can go to your teacher and your teacher will be there with their full support. So I think gradually middle school kind of prepares you for self-advocating for yourself, and when time is removing the stigma from asking teachers to meet, and like, I don't feel like, oh no, I'm dumb, so I'm not understanding, you know, the other students are getting it, so I don't want to ask in class, you know, Miss whatever, can we meet after class? But when time removes that stigma, and it made students feel a lot more comfortable with asking. So when time and agency and just growing up, I think, will make the students completely ready for high school. I have no doubt about that in my mind.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to transition a little bit to some questions that were in the chat, and these might be more, and the students might be able to speak to it, but it might be more for the principals or perhaps Tanya. Can you tell us a little bit about the English as an Additional Language program in middle school? What kind of supports are there? What does that look like? Maybe Pete or Doug might want to take that one. Sure,
I'll jump in. And I just want to thank the student speakers that we had. Wow. I'm super impressed, and you know, they really have. I said it way better than I ever could, a lot of those things. So thank you for that. Yeah, just a little bit about the EAL program and LR as well. At each grade level, we have a designated EAL teacher that works with kids in that grade level, and they do it 2 ways. So when kids come in, they're learning a second language, and you can imagine, parents, what it's like to come into a school and try to manage in a language that's not your first language, all the things that are happening. It's a real challenge. So hats go off, and so much respect to our second language learners that we have at ISKL. They're a huge part of our community, and they add so much. And really what we do is we test them to see what WIDA level they're at, and then we move them into a class that is a more, you know, for kids with lower levels of English, and then there's a class with slightly higher levels of English. And then we have kids that are in the program, we're just monitoring them. So we give them support in a class setting with just a small group of kids who are learning the language. And then when they're back in their other classes, their math and their science and their language arts classes and social studies, humanities, we actually have teachers who come into the class and they come in with them and support them. So they get out of class support and in class support to help them with the language. And because they're immersed in the target language of English, our kids move through our program so quickly. Generally about 18 months, our kids can be academically proficient in English just from coming in at the lowest level of the WIDA score.
And I'll just highlight a few things that Peter has said. As an inclusive school, these people make us better. Every single member of our community is a strength and makes us better. And as Rika said, our ultimate goal is independence. And so we're looking for the least restrictive environment to help and support with those students. And this is all from a strength-based approach. These emerging bilingual students who are already fluent in 1, 2, 3 languages and are now learning English, wow, what an asset to our community.
And whether you're in EAL or not, when we do have sports activities and field trips, all of that, everybody is involved. Everybody's included.
Yeah, and that's one of the best ways to learn the language. When you send a child out for a week and he goes off to Malaysia week or he goes to Phuket for a soccer trip, he's doing nothing but speaking English with his friends. And, you know, it's an amazing opportunity for those kids and really helps them settle into the community as well. So absolutely, they're involved in all aspects of school life.
Great. And a little bit of a transition question over to parents. As you think about the parent partnership that we have so much here at ISKL, how do parents offer support? How do parents get engaged with preparing their students or having their students be future ready now and in the future? What does that look like?
Parents, I truly cannot thank you enough for what you are currently doing. We know this has been a challenge, but just across the board, trying to manage the situation at home with your kids, it's incredible. And I thank you so much. And I would say that that's the at the core of anything that we want to do for our kids is offer that support, be that safe place for our kids, and not allowing, it was hard for us growing up. I think, my parents have a vision of what you want for your child, but your kids will find their way. And we need to plant as many seeds as we can and fertilize them with as much love and support as we can give them, both at school and at home. And then we see which ones grow. And this whole process of kids, that they talked to Rika was talking about that sort of that slow release. As a parent, you have to slowly release control and you have to be there to support, but the kids have to start taking initiative. If they're waiting for you to tell them what to do, when to do it all the time, their growth is going to be much slower than if we provide the opportunity, and know that there will be times when they will fail. And that's going to be a great learning opportunity for them as well. So I think those are the things that we really need to do to make our kids future ready, because we don't exactly know what the future holds. Our kids need to be resilient. And the only way you can be resilient is to have a couple of missteps, have a couple of times where things didn't go the way you wanted, but you reflected on it and you learned the next time. And teaching our kids to be resilient is really important. So as parents, we need to support that and not, it's okay when kids struggle a little bit and we need to be supportive of that, but it's their learning that they need to take a hold of.
And if I may add also, I totally agree with Pete. If you are like me, I'm sure I'm the oldest here in the room. When I grew up, I was told first you go to school, you're successful at school, and then you go to college and you do so well in college and then get a job and then family. We reduced life to something very linear. And there is always a worry by parents, will my child make it? We want you to trust that your children will make it. They will find their ways. They will be happy. They will be successful. Trust that what we are offering at the school is so research-based, so based on experience. I'm a parent myself, have 3 kids, but guess what? As an educator, hundreds of kids I have seen, and the same with my colleagues. So trust that their definition of success and their journey may be different than yours, but it will be fine because they really need your confirmation and your validation.
Thank you, Rami, and thank you, Pete and Doug and Tanya and all the students who are here. We're getting ready to just close this session. I hope tonight that we've covered your questions, that we've given you some great ideas and thinking about future ready. I hope you've learned a lot about how ISKL is preparing its students to be future ready and making sure that we're really walking the talk and making sure that we're empowering students to own their learning and offering them the flexible pathways to match their needs, as well as supporting them along the way. And that's it for tonight. If we did not answer your questions, please email us at communications@iskl.edu.my. We thank you very much for joining. And unless anyone else has a closing remark, we will conclude tonight's session.
I'm feeling appreciative of our students and appreciative of the parents who joined us. You students are a model for us to aspire toward, and we learn from being on that journey with you. Well done, all of you. And thank you, parents.
Yes, I'll just say as well, what an honor it is to be a part of this community, to work with amazing faculty that you see on there that are working with your kids every day. And parents, you've raised incredible kids. We are so lucky to work with your children. You saw just 4 of them today. We could have picked any number of them, but we picked 4. There's so many wonderful kids, and that's because of what you do. So thank you for the partnership and the support that we get. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we're back in school soon and things will return to a more normal life and we get to see each other on a much more regular basis. We love seeing you at middle school. This is your school. This is your place. Please let us know how we can support and what we can do. And thank you again, students, tonight.
Thank you all again for joining us. And speaking of hearing you, seeing you, it's a bit of a tradition here now at ISKL that we ask you to unmute yourself, show us your video if you like, and so that we can say goodbye and have a great evening or morning, depending on where you're joining us from. So thank you again. We hope to see you soon, virtually or face-to-face. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.